throws his way into the...
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 49ers University. I'm your co-host, Ben Meyerson. I'm joined by my guy, Vinny Saglimbeni. I'm over at Florida State University at our student newspaper. I'm a writer there covering football and basketball. My co-host, Vinny Saglimbeni, is the editor-in-chief over at Gonzaga, their student newspaper. We got quite the exciting week to talk about. I know, Vinny, I was joking last week that, hey, we might have to do a call-in show to let 49ers fans complain after this game, but the 49ers just beat the best team in football. Aaron Rodgers is a complete fraud, and 49ers own the Rams, so they're already in the Super Bowl, right? Right. Okay. Let's get into things, though, Vinny. First of all, Amin the Dream. Shout out to Amin. Everyone go check out Amin the Dream if you haven't already. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. And if you're joining us for the first time, subscribe to Vinny's YouTube channel. Follow him on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. You can see our ats right here. We'll keep you guys updated on everything. And make sure you follow us on Twitter, especially because we do Twitter Spaces. We've been doing it once a week for the last couple games, pretty much since that Tennessee Titans game. And I know we did one after the Rams game. Now, Vinny, before we get into everything, wow, that was the craziest football weekend I've ever watched in my entire life.
Yeah, all 4 games ending on the last play. And it could have gone either way in all 4 of those games, which I think made it very interesting. And obviously they were all, within one score of each other. And I think the Chiefs-Bills game was a very fitting end and a very fitting wrap-up to the entire weekend. So, yeah, obviously still very fun. A lot of fun being on the winning side of it, obviously. But, wow, I still honestly can't believe and even comprehend how the 49ers were able to find a way to win. It was crazy.
Well, and also, shout out to Ekim, Korean 49er, who appears on Grant's channel a lot. He's always on the Cone phone. And yeah, honestly, my biggest takeaway from this weekend is, man, does it suck to be Josh Allen right now, because he was perfect as perfect gets from the position. And still, I mean, wow.
Crazy to think, if you were to look at just the quarterbacks, you'd say it's crazy to say that Josh Allen is out of the playoffs and Jimmy Garoppolo still in it. That's
you don't know how many times I've said that today to so many different people. Josh Allen is not in the playoffs. Jimmy Garoppolo still is. And you know what? Let's talk about why he still is. Let's talk about this 49ers-Packers game. I mean, Vinny, this was obviously one of the craziest games. I was about to say the craziest game this weekend. It wasn't. But this is one of the craziest football games I've ever watched, especially, I mean, even after that Dallas Cowboys game. I'll just say this. 90s 49ers fans have to feel pure euphoria right now, because you beat your rivals in back-to-back playoff weeks, and now you're playing for the NFC Championship game against your divisional opponent, who you own, and have beaten 6 times in a row. This game, to me, starting off, Vinny. Let's talk about this Packers first drive really quick, because I think after that point a lot changed. But I remember watching that first drive, Packers first down after first down after first down. Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams getting targets left and right. I think there was a slot fade. I'm trying to remember if that was earlier, later in the game, but that was as good as football gets for the Green Bay Packers. That's what they've been doing all season. They run the field up. They run up and down the field on teams, and it just looks easy for them. But at the end of the day, Vinny, after that drive, the Green Bay Packers were a completely different team. Aaron Rodgers was a completely different quarterback, and the 49ers defense, wow. What a performance.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and I think a lot of 49ers fans had that feeling of, oh crap, after that first drive, because it just seemed seamless and flawless. And I think it's funny to think about, some of the criticism that Kyle Shanahan has gotten over like this year and in the past has been, he's really good scripting on that first drive, but everything else, the adjustments, I think the adjustments aren't like up to par. And I think you can have those same criticisms for Matt Lafleur.
That's exactly where I was going, Vinny. I think people talk about Shanahan in this way, but I think for Lafleur's career, I mean, even thinking back to that last championship game, right, where last year they lost to the Bucs because instead of being aggressive and going for the touchdown, they kicked the field goal with enough time left, and then the Bucs run the clock out. To me, people get on Shanahan for his time management, for his clock decisions, for his in-game situation awareness. Matt Lafleur has little to no is situational in-game awareness. I understand he is a very good coach. He is excellent at operating that offense and designing what the Packers do with Davante Adams. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't make the adjustments to go along with that and understand what's going on in the game, it's going to be a big problem. And I think that's what we saw, Vinny, is 49ers, not only did they adjust on the fly, but he took advantage of the Green Bay Packers after that first touchdown.
And heading into this game too, if you were to tell me that this was, well, I did like.
Oh wait, and hey, by the way, number 1 seed in the East, Miami Heat. So you know what? I'm just gonna sit back. FSU number 1 in the ACC. We just beat Duke. I don't think there's anything I need to talk about, Vinny. I'm just a winner, apparently.
Come on, pal. I'm a Warriors fan, and I go to Gonzaga. Let's have our due diligence.
Yeah, let's get back to that. Sorry, Vinny, that was my fault. But no, talking about Matt Lafleur, though, Vinny, let me ask you this: is Matt Lafleur a fraud?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It was funny. It was funny because I did. Before the game started, and like I think we had talked about it a little bit in our Twitter space before. I wanted to see what people thought, ranking. Like I ranked personally Lafleur, Shanahan, and McVay from best to worst, and so I had McVay at the top. I had Shanahan second, then I had Lafleur third, and I think Lafleur, has the best record or like the least amount of losses out of those three. But I think the last night was the exact reason why I put him at third, in the sense that a lot of his production and his success has been directly, I think, correlated to his quarterback in being Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's done the best job with Aaron Rodgers, which you need to give credit to him for doing that.
For sure. But let's just keep in mind, Vinny, the baseline was Mike McCarthy.
And I understand that. I understand that. And I think he still is a good head coach. But the reason why I put Shanahan and McVay above is just what they've been able to do in the past with maybe not as good quarterbacks, but you can see that production, right? Like Jimmy, like for the second time in 3 years, Kyle Shanahan is in the NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And Sean McVay has taken Jared Goff to the Super Bowl. And I think that's where I really need to start. And I think I've gotten to have a better understanding of McVay and Shanahan because of like the quarterbacks that they have and like will continue to change. Whereas LaFleur's kind of had one guy. So I think with, who knows, but I think it's more likely than not at this point that Aaron Rodgers isn't returning to the Packers. That's going to be the test to me as to how good of a coach Matt LaFleur is. So I think ultimately, like as much blame as I think you want to give the special teams, as much blame as you want to give to Aaron Rodgers on the Packers side, you got to give some blame. I think the most blame, because I got to go on LaFleur. The 49ers, you know how many points they scored on offense? 0. And they lost. And it was, if you keep like going into if you like keep thinking about the game and all the advantages that the Packers had, it just makes this loss even worse for them, I think.
They were the best team in football, Vinny.
Yeah, and like they were the number one seed. They had home field advantage. They had the advantage of, being used to that colder weather and playing in those circumstances before.
Yeah.
They didn't have to travel.
You mentioned the 0 points by the 49ers on offense. You want to talk about the performance of the night, it's the 49ers defense. I mean, Vinny, up until this point, I remember listening to the Locked On show. Shout out to Eric Crocker, Brian Peacock. They do an excellent job. They did a crossover at the Green Bay Packers show, and they were talking to the host over there, and they asked him, they said, what have you seen from the Packers this season where their offense was stopped or slowed down or even mitigated somewhat? And his answer was, no one has done it yet. And on Saturday night, the 49ers, not only did they flip that narrative, their defense and special teams won the game for them. Obviously, the special teams thing is a little fluky considering that the Packers special teams is so awful and the 49ers special teams is so awful. But, Vinny, this 49ers defense, it's the best in the league. I don't have any doubt about that.
Yeah, and you saw it from, we'll talk about game balls a little later, but you saw it from players that needed to step up really big in this game. And obviously your stars are going to be stars and they're going to ball out and everything like that. But some of those stars made those big plays, talking about Fred Warner causing the fumble, Eric Armstead getting a couple sacks, Nick Bosa being Nick Bosa, those kinds of things. But Jaquaski Tart as well, probably that game-saving play where he ran literally like 60, like over, probably like if you look at like the weight, look how long the field is and how wide it is, probably ran over like, 100 yards just to make that stop. Like it's, I know that sounds stupid, but that just may be like, because you know what I'm saying? Like the field is like 53.
But those kind of plays, like you're talking about the angle that
those effort plays,
Yeah, the speed he has to have in order to make that play, the athleticism and the instincts you have. It just, I think I saw one person tweet me after the Dallas game when I was talking about the 49ers, I believe back in week 9, talking about, how bad this roster was, how much, the GM and the way they just built this team, I felt was very flawed. And I think up until that point, I might have been right, Vinny. But what I think we're seeing now, what's happened over these last few weeks, and the reason that this team is as hot as they are right now, is that their stars are performing up to where they should be for sure. Absolutely. Their A players are playing at an A status, but all the ancillary pieces, the Bs, the C pluses, they're all playing above expectations or at expectations. And for a lot of them, they're playing above it to the point where they're huge assets for the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers defensive line just was not the same defensive line in week 9, Vinny. They've done, moving Eric Armstead inside, using Arden Key like they have, who, by the way, didn't even get that many snaps in this game. They're 8 deep in that defensive line room, and now they finally figured out how to enhance and really make that the reason why they win games. I mean, this front seven for the 49ers is as good as any in football. And now that their secondary is finally coming around, and no Ambry, another thing, no Ambry Thomas this game. I mean, the fact that the 49ers were able to overcome all of that, it's a testament to D'Amico Ryans, first of all, but also the way they put together this roster, the way things have turned out, it has really been in the 49ers' favor.
Yeah, and credit, like, obviously, like, most of the credit does go to D'Amico Ryans and those players, but I think this is very much, I don't know if he'll ever, do it or say it, but this is very much a I told you so moment for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Remember halfway through the year, there were people wanting Brian Daboll as the new head coach and wanting him to be gone. And, we've questioned, like we talked about before, we questioned some of his decisions. And I think
people
there's
were
still
talking a lot about D'Amico even. I mean, this was.
Yeah. But, he stuck with his guns. He kept to his plan, and clearly it worked. Like, he's playing in, like, if you were to ask me after that, before that first Rams matchup, if they would be playing this Rams team in the NFC Championship game, I'd say no. honestly.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they're here, and they're kind of the 49ers are a team as like all you got to do is give them a shot. That's all the 49ers ask, and they're going to take care of everything else. And regardless of whatever seed they are, I think they're just proving now that not just this year, but in years to come, this is not a team that you want to play going forward in the playoffs, regardless of their seeding. And I think that's credit to Shanahan and what he's been able to do. Yeah, he still has his questionable decisions and everything like that. Like every coach and player has their mishaps. But there's not many other coaches in the league that I would want to take over Kyle Shanahan right now.
Well, and we'll go over to game balls in a second, Vinny. I do want to address one comment, though, from Swan Song. He said, I know this isn't the time for this. You are getting a little ahead of things. But he's asking, should the 49ers go after Gilmore or J.C. Jackson? And
yes.
The answer is yes, if they can. I don't think that – listen, the 49ers will have cap space this offseason, certainly. But first and foremost, they have to re-sign all of their great players that are on this team. Jaquiski Tartt, Laken Tomlinson, DJ Jones, Arden Key, Azeez Al-Shaair. Like, guys like that, they have to get back, and they have to be priority number one.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, Vinny. I don't know if secondary is necessarily the spot to invest in right now. And I've been all about investing in the secondary, but the fact of the matter is the 49ers have Emmanuel Mosley signed for another year who has shown when he's healthy, when he's playing, he's a very, very good starting level corner in this league. And with the way Ambry Thomas is progressing, quite frankly, I don't think they should do either of these moves, because if they signed either of those players would have to be starting players for the 49ers next year on the outside. And I just don't want to I don't want to demote either Mosley or Ambry Thomas so that I can make room for one of these older guys who, yes, are very, very good, but ultimately I'd rather have depth at other positions and try and spread that money across, or even if you really want to go after like a Chandler Jones type or something like that, right? That type of player.
To that, I say, like, I completely understand that, and I think this is something that a lot of 49ers fans and media got caught up in when they were having when they had the success in 2019 heading into the 2020 offseason. I think a lot of the winning kind of overshadowed some of the problems that I think they had. And I think corner still is something that you at least have to like look into, and kind of like what you mentioned, if there's something for the right price that you can get for one of these guys, I think you should go do it. And like, I think it applies
I just think the type of corner they should sign, Vinny, is not necessarily J.C. Jackson or Stephon Gilmore, but more your Mike Hilton, your ancillary type pieces, right? That if the 49ers bring in one of these players, it's not going to be an issue of, oh, is this guy starting or is he not starting, right?
And there's going to be players that that you just won't re-sign because of injury or anything like that. Like, I don't expect Jason Verrett to be back on this roster next year, like Ekim kind of just mentioned.
Unless he wants to be on a $600,000 deal for 1 year.
He's got to be on like a cheap deal, and who knows if he's even going to start, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing. I think looking at it now, I think there's, like you mentioned, there's other places where they can use some of those assets and potentially.
And I would prefer the depth over one of those corners, right?
Yeah,
what
I think
is get an extra corner, an extra defensive lineman, whatever.
Yeah, and I think you look at corners, like you can never have enough good corners,
right?
But it's just, I don't know if like players like J.C. Jackson or Stephon Gilmore are willing to play in those roles like you mentioned, and I think you still look at and there could be trades that could be made as well.
For sure.
That would have to open up other needs that they would have, like potentially looking to like, if you decide to re-sign Laken Tomlinson on that left guard, I mean, you may look to retool it right on that right side a little bit at some point. So you want to try to get guys that can fill in those certain spots. I don't think there's any like, I know people are going to say, look how good they're doing without Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey is better than Tom Compton.
He is.
We need to stop that, and he's going to. And they would be in a better spot right now if Mike, as good as they've been, in that they're in the NFC Championship game. You feel a lot more confident knowing that Mike McGlinchey's at that right tackle spot more than Tom Compton. And that's credit to Tom Compton, by the way, for playing. For sure. Like last game, I think he struggled a little bit. But leading up to that point, he was playing, mistake-free football at that right tackle position. And I think, he's definitely, earned that spot, I think, as like that
swing tackle.
In the case
and I think with the Tom Compton thing, it's really not that Mike McGlinchey is so much better than Tom Compton for some people. Or the issue. It's more that I think looking over holistically, the fact that you have Tom Compton at the price he is that replacement player coming in for Mike McGlinchey, who you're going to be paying top dollar. That's where the issue is, right? It's more of a value thing than it is a player-to-player issue. But I do want to keep the ball moving. We said we were going to give out game balls, Vinny. How about this? We're each going to give out 2 game balls. And I'm going to start first and foremost because, man, I think the guy who deserves the game ball for this game and the guy who maybe we're not talking about quite enough is Fred Warner. I know he had that phenomenal. He had that fumble, but man, has Fred Warner been phenomenal. And he was excellent. He graded out as the 49ers best coverage player this past week at a 94 grade, which I don't care what you think about PFF grades, getting a 94 coverage grade at the linebacker position is near damn impossible. And the fact that Fred Warner did it is a testament to how great he is in coverage. And I think just overall, people are going to point to the defensive line getting the pressure they did, which is great to point out. It's excellent. But with how multiple the 49ers were on defense, with how creative D'Amico got, and the fact that D'Amico and Fred are on the same page and they're making everything happen, and they were the reason the 49ers won this game, I got to start on defense, and I got to start with Fred Warner / D'Amico Ryans, let's say, because really, I think this was a defensive chess match, and D'Amico Ryans, I mean, he made Matt Lafleur like dumb, like legitimately dumb.
Yeah, and that's where we were talking earlier about, your big players showing up in those big moments, and Fred Warner was definitely one of those people. My first game ball that I'm going to be giving is a guy that has gotten a lot of slack since he's been here. He's kind of the guy that always finds a way to get back on this roster, and in a late time situation, in that late time situation, he adjusted very, very well, and he is not getting enough credit for his performance on the day. My first game ball goes to Dante Johnson.
God damn it, Vinny! Dante Johnson Island, by the way,
he was
getting more and more residents by the day because wow, was that
he was phenomenal. I think, and obviously for the expectations I think we have for Dante Johnson, I think he handled it really, really well. I don't think he committed any penalties, and you look at those catches that Devontae Adams had against him. Okay, Devontae Adams is doing that to literally every corner in the league, even guys like Jalen Ramsey. So Dante Johnson, I think in that late situation, because it was just announced on that day that he wasn't,
like hours before the game,
hours before Ambry Thomas was going to play, and for him to step in and really get that have that confidence in himself, and in his coverage and everything like that. He played a clean game of football. Again, no penalties, no pass interferences or anything like that. So he is he's very much deserving of a game ball. And I think this may be a little bit of a hot take. The criticism that he was getting, I think, should be applied to K'Wan Williams, because I don't know if K'Wan Williams has been playing to the level of what
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, Vinny, because I think people talk, people I know, and I've heard Vish talk about how, K'Wan's the best run fitting nickel in the league, and that he just does nickel better than anyone else. His coverage has not been up to par for what they need in that position.
Yeah, and he's going to be, I think, the most important player next week if the 49ers are to beat the Rams. I think he's going to be crucial just because of they're going to try and line up different people. He's probably going to see a lot of Cooper Kupp in that slot, maybe even Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not saying he's bad because I don't think he's been playing like necessarily bad, but I think
his coverage has not been up to par.
Yeah, I don't think he's like because I think he was the guy that was covering Amari Cooper the week before, and he got beat there
on the slot fade,
on that slot fade. So I think he's kind of a guy like he's still playing well, but I think when they can get like him fully playing well, I think that's when the defense is just going to be that much better, and all that is credit. I mean, and credit to, again, this is just credit to Dante Johnson for having an amazing game. I think for the expectations that I think a lot of people have for him, he played really, really well.
Blew my expectations out of the water. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was gonna go with someone different for my last game ball, but I have a feeling you'll probably give it to this player anyways, because we haven't even touched that side of the ball. I'm gonna go straight to special teams though, Vinny. Because special teams itself deserves a game ball for the 49ers. I know people are saying Jordan Willis. I think between him, what Jimmy Ward did in Huff, I mean, this was – we talked about all year, Vinny, in certain games, especially towards the end of the year, they're going to lose this game because of special teams. Offense and defense has been rolling. Special teams, hey, that's where the 49ers are going to lose this game. It was the complete opposite. The 49ers won this game because of their special teams on Saturday night. And I don't think there's anyone who's denying that right now. I feel like, man, just a shout out to Richard Hightower because Jimmy Ward, I believe Willis, and Huff, they even talked about how Richard Hightower specifically mentioned the things that they did in the game during their practice and during their preparation this week, saying, hey, this is where you can get the package. Here's what you can do in these situations. Yeah. And in terms of situational football for special teams, Debo returning the kick that he did at a halftime, I believe, man, just an absurd special teams performance.
Yeah, really, and like I know I was half jokingly saying last week that they were gonna win on a Robbie Gould field goal. So and like they actually ended up doing that. And again, if you were to ask me, this is the 49ers were gonna beat the number 1 seed Green Bay Packers on the road and not score an offensive touchdown, I thought you would have been crazy. Special teams literally scored all of their points. And so you got to give credit to, all those guys, Hightower, like you mentioned, Hufanga, Jordan Willis, Jimmy Ward, and then obviously, Robbie Gould. And honestly, too, I think you got to give credit to Mitch Wisnowski as well. Or not Mitch Wisnowski, the punt returner, Travis Benjamin. I think they found and the decisions like that Hightower was making with, putting Deebo Samuel back there to start in that kick return. I think the 49ers found themselves in a lot of really good field positions starting out during this game. And I think they weren't able to take advantage of that offensively, but the defense stepped up and the special teams, helped put those teams in the best, put the offense in the best position going forward. And that's really all you can ask from them.
And then for your last game ball, Vinny, I'm not going to push you in a certain direction, but if you don't say this guy, I'm going to be very mad with you.
I mean, I was trying to think of guy because you referred to it as offense, and I think there's obviously there are some. I don't think the offensive line played particularly. Jimmy was getting hit a little bit, so it wasn't really him. I was thinking maybe you were thinking of George Kittle, but he had that big drop in the where he could have scored a touchdown on it. But I think it's only one guy.
It's obviously Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean,
yeah. But I think the guy you're talking about is just the guy that I think is the MVP of this team and
best player in the NFL, man.
One the best, I think, non-quarterback, at least at the very minimum, the best non-quarterback offensive player in the league, and that's Deebo Samuel. I just think
that is Deebo.
It's amazing how he's able to do this on a weekly basis, taking the load and and really
by the way, I got a preview of Kyle Shanahan's play sheet. I'm pretty sure it just says give Deebo the ball.
And you saw, and what I liked about it was in the Dallas, going back to the Dallas game a little bit, after K'Waun Williams got the interception, they had the mic'd up stuff on the NFL, and after that play, he was going out to the field. He kind of like said like, "Hey Kyle," and they like gave him like the nod or whatever. It's just like, "Give me the ball," and he did, and he scored. And I think that makes Kyle Shanahan's job a lot easier, knowing that you have. And I think he's not the only player that has this kind of mentality, but knowing that when you need a big play on the line, that player wants the ball to make that play and put the game in his hands. And Deebo Samuel did that. I mean, with that 3rd and 7, that was obviously a big first down to get the Niners in that field goal position to kick it and win. But yeah, there's not really much you can really say about Deebo Samuel other than the stuff that we've already been saying. I mean, he's 1 of 1. There's already another
Deebo Samuel in the draft from Arkansas, right?
Yeah, that's why I saw that too. I was just like, okay,
sure.
Let me see him do it. Like,
someone told me AJ Brown was Deebo Samuel yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, everybody there. Yeah, and apparently there's a Deebo Samuel in every era of football, but I don't think we've ever. Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to. It's obvious to give him that last game ball, but I mean, like, it'd be stupid to not give him one, given how much he's like meant to this team. And it always seems like Vish is right, man. About seems like he was just saying constantly, even before his breakout year, Deebo Samuel is the most valuable player on this offense, and I think we're really seeing that come to fruition this season. So credit to him too. And I don't think it's a situation. I kind of follow it as kind of more like a I don't think he's due. They were talking after like the 49ers he was the top contract priority, and they were going to give him his money.
Yeah.
I don't think, and they have to at this point. And I don't think he's a guy that would be fazed by the money at all. I don't think he seems like that kind of guy, and he just wants to keep winning. And I think the 49ers obviously will make it a priority to get him back next year.
As they should. And I even saw, I did a whole preview article for Deebo Samuel's contract extension. The numbers I was talking about, Vinny, were $21 to $23 million annual per year. And Rappaport specifically said in his report, hey, 20 million might be that number, and it might even be lower than that. So if the 49ers can get Deebo Samuel below 20 million per year,
that's a steal.
That's a steal and a half.
That's a steal, and he's worth every single penny. Even if it were to go to as high as that 23, like you mentioned, I think he's worth every single penny of that deal. And
up until that deal gets to $25 million, I'm comfortable paying Deebo what he wants.
Yeah, and that's where, again, that's a credit to the front office as well. I think for getting those bigger names locked in to kind of build around, and I think we've criticized them in the past in terms of like personnel and like who's like getting the blame really and everything like that, but they're setting themselves up very well for these next few years, especially with we have to say his name every week, Trey Lance eventually taking over. They can do that, like they're still keeping their cornerstone guys on the team, and they're able to do that smartly with not having to pay these other guys, and really keeping that Super Bowl window as long as they can. So it's I think the future is, at this point, I think it's a very, very bright future for this 49ers team, and I think they're only going to get better. And I think it's no really debate like we've talked about it a couple times. Was it a wasted season or anything like that? I don't think it's been a wasted season at all. If you get to an NFC Championship game, it's not a wasted season. So,
and yeah, I mean, I was the one who was talking about that. So I wrote
a whole and I thought it would have been too. And it's crazy to think because like
they were that
close. I think back to back weeks they were.
They had to
that
win.
close.
Texans and the Rams, yeah.
Yeah. So like I don't know if that's even applicable anymore. Just because like we could talk about the things that could have or would have happened or almost happened, but they didn't happen. We can only talk about the things that did. And 49ers are playing in the NFC Championship game the second time in 3 years, the fifth time in the last 10. So I think the 49ers are, I'm not saying this just because I'm a fan of the team. 49ers are back and the NFL is better because of it. So
no, I'm right there with you, and I think most NFL fans would agree with you too. And you know what? Talking about the future, Vinny, let's talk about this week. We got a great game coming at us Sunday night in LA.
On Fox, right? It's on Fox.
Yes, I believe it's going to be Aikman and Buck again. Which I know people love to hate on Joe Buck. I
was about to say I think obviously it's easy to hate on Joe Buck. I think Joe Buck is like he's one of the best, man.
Absolutely. You know who I don't like though? It's freaking Troy Aikman, man. That guy. It's not that I don't like Troy. It's not that I don't mind Troy.
I think that
he's called so many games.
Yeah, I think though, like if we're talking about the big name crews, like. Because like there's Aikman and Joe Buck, Nance and Romo. That's the ESPN
Colin
Monday night.
And Al. Yeah.
And then you got that ESPN crew. Like, I think for me, I would obviously give the edge to Jim Nance and Tony Romo. I think they just do a phenomenal job. But I think Joe Buck and not because I loved Al Michaels. It's just I think Chris Collinsworth is just I just don't really like him that much. I don't know. It's just
it's all about personal preference.
Especially, and as a personal
preference. I'll say this, Vinny. I don't think there's any great football announcing crew right now. I just don't think so.
I think the one you argue, though, is Nance and Romo.
For sure.
That's the closest thing.
And they're the best
Monday night crew. The Monday night crews they can never get right. So,
dude, the Monday night crew has been awful since John Gruden left. And it's quite ironic thinking about how things have really come full circle for John Gruden.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic though for a whole nother day. Something I do not want to touch right now. Let's talk about this 49ers offense though. They were terrible in this last game, Vinny. There's no other way around that. Deebo Samuel was excellent. Elijah Mitchell is great. 49ers offense scored 0 points against the Packers. They really struggled to move the ball in the first half. And even when they did get the ball moving, they didn't make the most of those drives. So Vinny, how do you think this 49ers offense is going to match up against the Rams defense, who they just saw in Week 18?
I think they're going to be able to do more than what they wanted to do in this last game. I just, and you hope that Trent Williams will be back and healthy, healthy enough at least to play. And, but I mean, as much as like both teams are playing in the same conditions, but I think those conditions they don't have to worry about those next week. So there's going to be a lot more, creativity and fluidity with the play calling. And I think the execution of that play calling as well, just because, if the Tampa was going to win, playing in Tampa at this time of year is better than playing at Lambeau at this time of year. And
yeah, it is.
They got the advantage also of playing in the Dome in LA. So
and less travel too, Vinny. That's
less
the main
travel
thing that I think they should be really happy about for this game is they could have gone from Dallas to Green Bay to Tampa.
And they're going baall back home in between those times.
Absolutely.
So it would have been
and having the Saturday game helps too, an extra day. All this stuff, the late game, every little bit helps with this,
Yeah. So I think that's where we're going to see a little bit more execution. I think we're going to see more Brandon Ayuk in this game. I don't think we saw a lot of him in this game, in this last game. And there's going to be, I guess, less excuses for some of those mishaps that happen, whether it have been, drops and that there were a couple drops early, but I think ultimately it's just going to be the same thing that we say every week. It's just going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo making the right play and that turnover battle as well, but still finding ways to be aggressive, but in a smart way, like not to throw it, just to throw it, because I thought that pick obviously was like a bad pick, and but against this Rams defense who really got to Tom Brady a lot yesterday. I think the Bucs may have had some injuries on that O-line, which may have been the reason why, but
they had some big issues. Yeah,
and I think it's just going to be a lot of just the way that they would play. I think is just some of the things that brought them success earlier, but also a lot of the things that they will try to implement, I think, will play to the successes of their offense anyway. Like a lot of those screens, getting the ball out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hands quickly, getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers. So I think either way, it's going to be a good matchup, and it's going to come down to the Jimmy Garoppolo, not making those, big mistakes. And if he is to make those mistakes, get him out the way. Don't have it be like timely. Like, I think that's the thing that makes Garoppolo's turnovers a lot worse. It's they either come at a really bad time or they just aesthetically look bad.
Also, the last few when they haven't been at the worst, when they haven't, let me just say this. There have been picks he's had where the time of the game didn't necessarily matter, Vinny, but the team was in the red zone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's like they had the lead and everything like that, but you can not afford to have turnovers in the red zone.
No.
It's just like, and I know there's not a good interception or a good turnover that you can have, but have turnovers where the defense has to make a really phenomenal play. And I think that's where it's going to have to come down to if, Garoppolo is to turn the ball over, which, based on some of the betting odds that we saw last week, it's kind of safe to say it's not an underdog. So,
and I'm not gonna lie either, Vinny. I'm one of those people who took that bet and has been taking it almost every single week, the Jimmy INT, because it feels inevitable with Jimmy. Really, it does. I think Grant actually tweeted out today, 52 turnovers, 52 starts for Jimmy Garoppolo. It's just who he is, and that's for me, Vinny, is why I'm actually most concerned about the right side of this offensive line for this game. You talked about that Tampa game, and you touched on the fact that Tampa did have some injuries, right? The hardest thing for the 49ers is going to have Tom Compton and Daniel Brunskill in pass protection, because I really think against that front, I mean, obviously, people make the jokes about Aaron Donald and Brunskill. Let's get outside that for a second. Von Miller, Robert Quinn.
I was just going to say we got to stop the Brunskill and Aaron Donald stuff. Trust me.
Yeah.
We've done this before, I think, in the past in the NBA with Matthew Dellavedova versus Steph Curry. Like, come on, we know who came out on top.
Reggie Jackson in the playoffs last year. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's just like, just trust me.
They're all NFL level players, right? Some of them perform certain. Look, at the end of the day, though, for me, Jimmy is going to be who Jimmy is. The 49ers run game should get their own. I'm not worried about that. In fact, I'm more confident than I've been all playoffs in terms of them running the ball. What I'm most worried about, though, at the end of the day is if that pass protection is going to hold up, because we know Jimmy Garoppolo has cement feet. He's just not going to move, and he's going to get sacked if you give him if you give the defense the opportunity. And this offensive line, I'm very much worried about them giving the defense an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And if you can get that pressure and force Jimmy into bad situations, things go downhill.
Yeah. And another thing too, a couple things. I think the way you beat the Rams is just the way that they've, I think you look at that first matchup against the Rams and you got to do your best to keep the offense off the field.
Absolutely.
And I think that just like mathematically makes sense, right? The more that
they're a volatile offense, Vinny, right? But at the same time, their ability to get that quick strike score is better than anyone else this season, and that's why.
So you got to take advantage of the time that you have with him, and
absolutely.
And I think we talked about it almost every week. This could be like, and he had a good game last week, outside of that drop, but this could be the George Kittle game. I think this is where I think we'll see a lot of him, especially lined up against those linebackers. Because I don't think Jalen Ramsey is going to follow George Kittle. I think he's going to follow Deebo. And so you look at those matchups, and even against those safeties, who knows if Taylor Rapp may not be able to play this week. Didn't play last week. Andrew Whitworth as well for the Rams offense. But we'll get to that in a second. But this could be the George Kittle game. And then I think this is, he's another one of those players that wants the ball in his hands when the time calls. But just continue. I think it's just honestly continue what they've been doing, not abandoning the run when it gets down. Getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers, and Jimmy just not turning the ball over. And I think they'll find themselves in a great position to win on Sunday.
Don't do too much, Jimmy, because
don't overcomplicate it.
Man, he overcomplicates it so much.
It works. It all works. Just
stick with it.
Yeah.
And like you said, committing to the run, man, if they. That's the thing where I do have confidence, because we saw in that Week 18 game, they could have definitely gone away from running the ball. They were down 17-0, backs up against the wall, season on the line, and they stuck with it. And I think the important thing, Vinny, is that they need to stick with not only establishing the run, but getting all those different playmakers involved. I know another note for the offense, Jeff Wilson Jr., we haven't really gotten any news about him. In fact, we should be getting news, over the course of the show, we should have gotten news from Kyle Shanahan about all these injuries. So hopefully we'll have some updates.
Yeah, I'll look that up. But just real quick, and because last week we talked about in that Week 3 game against the Packers, Jimmy threw it 40 times and they kind of abandoned that run. You saw that they had 29 carries. And then they had 19 passing attempts. So you saw that they were able to, keep with that. And I think we'll see more north of 20 passing attempts from Garoppolo. I think we'll see around probably 23 to 27 around there. 30, you kind of get a little, concerned, but but I think you can find themselves, committing to that run still.
Yeah. Oh, and Swan Song just let us know press conference has been moved to about 5 minutes from now, and will probably be ending right around then anyway. So that's good news. Everyone should definitely watch out for the injury front. But let's talk about the other side of this game, Benny. The Rams offense versus the 49ers defense. This 49ers defense is extremely healthy right now. Really, to me, the biggest question mark is going to be Ambry Thomas heading into this game. Where is he at? How comfortable is he going to be playing? Obviously didn't play against the Packers. But you mentioned Rams that could be without Andrew Whitworth. Obviously, they lost Robert Woods way earlier in the season. Cam Akers coming back from injury. Cam Akers, though, as much as I'm an FSU guy, I loved him, and I really think he's going to be a great back. He's looked good at times coming back, but he's clearly not 100% comfortable playing right now. And I think, as much as we know the Rams are going to get their own passing the ball right, we know how good this passing offense is for the Rams, and that they're just going to get big chunk plays. There's not much you can do about it. If the 49ers can sell out to stop the run and stop that part of what the Rams are doing, I really think the 49ers should win this game, Vinny.
Yeah, and I think that's a very true point, and I think the same. Again, it's all the same stuff. You know your opponent now very well. You play him. This is the third time you're playing him this year. It's just going to come down to. I don't think we'll see anything different from either team. I don't think. I think it's just a matter of execution and just making that play. And 49ers are just going to have to again stop that run. because the run just opens up so much more for that, play action passing game of the Rams, which is just unreal. And again, I think the guy that you look at, obviously you have your Bosa's and your Warners and your Jimmy Wards and everything like that, Eric Armstead as well. I think the guy that you look at that's going to have to play big in this game is K'Wan Williams. Again, I think they can't it's because he's going to see a lot of Cooper Kupp and he's going to see a lot of Odell Beckham Jr., probably see some Van Jefferson as well.
And this is not the game where he's going to be taking advantage of the run game, right? With all the ways that the Rams use their wide receivers, the way they spread the ball out, the way they spread the field out, it's going to be very tough for the 49ers just to say, hey, K'Wan, in these certain situations, we'll take you away from this, we'll take you out of that. They can't do that. What they're going to need to do is bracket for Cooper Kupp if need be, right? And really try and take advantage of the safeties you have, Jimmy Ward and Tart, and use them to your advantage rather than potentially the other way around where I feel like this game can be won or lost.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just again, it's just going to come down to execution and timely play calling from D'Amico Ryan's timely blitzes, and I think similar to what you would want to do against the Packers, make Matthew Stafford a little more uncomfortable in the beginning of the game and establish the tone, because I think that's what got the Packers, ahead in that game, was that they established that physicality early on, both on offense and defense. And the player that I obviously look at on the Rams offense that I'm a little concerned about is Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's just been playing phenomenal football over these last few weeks, and he's gotten he was better in that second matchup against the Niners. But whether it's him or whether it's Mosley or Ambry Thomas, OBJ, I think is going to be a potential headache in this game, along with a top 3 wide receiver this year, top 3-5 wide receiver this year in Cooper Kupp.
Even Van Jefferson is going to
Van Jefferson's been playing really well as well. Tyler Higbee, like they got everyone and everything. Yeah.
No, and they can mix and match. That's, I think, what's the most scary about this matchup is that the Rams can really spread out your defense and cause matchup problems for you all across the board, because they are going to be rotating guys. They're going to be bringing receivers in and out, and they'll go 4 or 5 receiver sets if they really want to, or at least out wide, right? So, yeah, it's going to be definitely a scary matchup on that end for the 49ers, but We've been talking all about this upcoming game, and I know that's going to be the focus of this week. But I feel like one thing was cemented for sure, maybe this weekend, Vinny. And to me, that's Jimmy Garoppolo's future with this 49ers team now. Personally, I'm just going to say I never had a doubt about where this was heading. The fact that the 49ers are going to let go of Jimmy after the season one way or the other. I just think heading into this game, Vinny, people had this idea that if Jimmy Garoppolo wins against Aaron Rodgers, then man, you got to start taking things into consideration. Jimmy Garoppolo winning all these games in the playoffs when he's healthy. I don't know about that, because at the end of the day, Vinny, the way the 49ers have set up this situation, it would be catastrophic if they didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason.
And I think you can tell by his responses recently that I think he knows that this is kind of his last hurrah. If you just listen to what he said, I think there was a
last dance, right?
Yeah, I think Aaron Andrews said something like in that interview, he was just talking about how he really wants to win it, and he really wants to win it for he loves this group of guys and everything like that. Absolutely. And that could just be normal, PR speech or anything like that. And those are obviously,
but
serious emotions
that
he
story,
has.
Vinny. The story from Kyle Juszczyk last week, heading into the Rams game, the stories. I mean, from Jimmy Garoppolo's side of things, everything seems to be leading to the fact that he's not going to be on this team anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where you kind of that's where this team is obviously, I think, very motivated now too, because like we said before, this team really likes Jimmy, and they have every reason to like him. Honestly, I mean, in that high, you could talk about like critique. You can critique him in every way, on the field possible. And it sounds like a broken record with some of the stuff that I think we've been saying. But one thing that's always been there, you can't really rip on him, is just his leadership, I think.
And I think he gets from the locker room.
The respect that he gets from
Sherman is still talking about how much he respects Jimmy Garoppolo and how fans need to give him more credit.
Like, yeah, and there's not many quarterbacks. Like, there was obviously that one shot before they kicked the field goal where he's just smiling, kicking it like nothing's happening. Not many quarterbacks are doing that. And to know that you have that guy that is just so calm but locked in at the same time, that's just a very unique trait, and that just shows the confidence that he has, like, I think, in himself, honestly. And I think it's the confidence that the team has in him, knowing that they can, win against any team in this playoff run, or any team in the league for that matter. So
and I think this playoff run has really cemented what the 49ers thought about Jimmy Garoppolo, which is, we know we can win games with him and that he's a starting level quarterback. But at the end of the day, he's not the quarterback of the future for the 49ers for multiple reasons. The main of which is his injury. But beyond just that, aside from his injuries, Vinny, which I think, if he wasn't injured at all, maybe the team could get away with trying to bring Jimmy back if they didn't have Trey Lance, right? A whole different world. But
that's I think, yeah.
Given the context, I mean, you were leading right where I was going to say, given the context of everything, the picks they traded, the players they have to re-sign this offseason, the financials of it all, if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo around for one more season, they'd be making their team worse in the future and in the present, and they wouldn't even be able to bring back this team that they have right now. Just with all the money, I mean, they would basically only be able to re-sign like a Tomlinson. That's it. So
yeah,
my thing the way is, they plan this out, they got to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I think the interesting question comes with what would have happened if Jimmy was healthy all of these years.
Wow.
What would they have done? Would they have kept him? Would this be as big of a, because I think ultimately, like, yes, you can critique the play, and I think the play is a big factor in this trade, but I think maybe even the bigger thing of why they're making this trade is just because you need your quarterback to play as many games as possible. And with this, I think with this draft class as well, like that with the Trey Lance and all these good guys, like, it's just, I think it kind of like was like a perfect situation for the 49ers to make this move. But a lot of it I think has to do with the injury. A lot of it has to do with the play, but I think it's all like coming together now, and it's starting to, like you said, like, make sense as to why they made these trades and why they made these moves.
Absolutely.
So, you hope that, I don't think there's really going to be much. I don't think there should be as much of, if the 49ers are to lose either this game or in the Super Bowl, there shouldn't be as much, bitter taste in 49ers fans' mouths. Like, and I think it's just a similar 2019 situation where, he wasn't
I think
main.
The bitterness would come from one aspect, Vinny, is if they have a Dallas Cowboys-like performance and Jimmy goes out and does what he did against the Cowboys and they lose that game, I understand what you're saying from the idea that, hey, look how far he's gotten them when he's healthy. Look how far the 49ers go. On the other side of that coin, I think 49ers themselves and the fans would be saying, look how great this team is. Imagine if they had a quarterback who didn't do what Jimmy does. And I think that's the tough part about this whole situation.
But this team is like, but I think that's a better problem. That's a better problem to have than just saying this guy stinks. Right. Yeah. And I think, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather have that be the conversation. Like, this team is still really good, but like the quarterback, like, they're in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
It's their second one in 3 years. Like, do you know how many teams would dream on, like, are begging to have that? Like, the 49ers are in a lot better situation than a lot of teams in this league, and they're one of the last 4 teams left in the playoffs, which is just crazy to think about over the span of this year. And obviously, I think, earlier in the year, we talked about like the 49ers and like everything like that. The Miami Dolphins were probably looking at this 49ers season a little bit too, and they're obviously a little, upset now. And just because at one point you're looking at
potentially 15 spots just because of one regular season game.
It's just like they were originally potentially in a point where they're like at a top 10, maybe top 10, 15 pick. Now they're at the highest pick that they would have is 28. Like
29th actually, or 29th, right? Because there's 4
or 29th. So like that's just like
wow.
Another little wrinkle that I think is kind of getting lost in all of this is just like, this is the hope that you have when making these kinds of trades. And it's only really like next year too that's really affected by it. And then after, that year 3 of, after Trey Lance's second year, you have your picks back. So then you can do whatever you like then to invest and do whatever. So all is that just to say it's just a crazy year, and whatever happens either this Sunday or somehow, some way, we're doing a pregame show, 2 pregame shows for a Super Bowl game. I just think there's just so much that you can take from this season and be proud of this team in particular, just because.
And I think there's a lot of optimism now for Trey Lance because what we talked about all season with Trey Lance when we would bring him up is like, look, Trey Lance is going to be his own quarterback. But at the end of the day, the situation he's in, what we talked about going into the draft, this is the best situation for a quarterback. And moving forward, I don't know if there's any quarterback who's been better set up to make his first year of career start than Trey Lance's. And I know that's a lot of pressure on him, but damn, is this team very, very elite around him.
Yeah, and like I think the difference between this run versus the 2019 run, obviously it's not over yet in this run, but
right.
I think there's just I kind of don't have as much expectation for these next hopefully couple games. It's just honestly this whole playoff run, the one game that I think you look at, I think the one game that you look at that you maybe had some expectations is that Dallas game. But I think other than that, you're just like just go with the flow and see what happens, and I think you'll be like satisfied with like that result. Whereas I think if you were to look at that 2019 year, it was I've said it before, it was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was.
Honestly. Like again, like, and I know like they have to win those games and everything like that. And I've spoken about this before. Look at the first 8 quarterbacks that they played in those first 8 weeks of that year. Then you look at and they had some big games that they won in those games as well. Obviously, that Seattle game.
But it's the complete opposite, Vinny. The 49ers started hot in 2019 and cooled off towards the end. The 49ers this year started terrible and have only heated up since the playoffs have started.
Yeah,
right?
and that's where like those
flip-flop.
And like those expectations, like especially seeing the 49ers kick the Packers' butt in that first game, I think that that second game as well, like you kind of like expected and know like, hey, the 49ers, they're just going to run all over this. Maybe not in that fashion, but like you felt like the 49ers were the clear favorite of that game,
that Packers team felt fraudulent. That whole situation felt like just made for the 49ers.
And the people forget, I mean, they were 6 minutes away from the Super Bowl. And
yeah, they were.
That's what and I think this is actually a very interesting comment that, looking back on it, like, because we had talked about, there was like you look at DVOA and you look at analytics, like there wasn't a much better defense that year. And I think I would still give the edge to that 2019 defense, just in the sense that you had a lot of these guys like younger, like you had I think
that's true.
That Richard Sherman, like that aged like that 2019 Richard Sherman is still better than Emmanuel Mosley.
Yeah.
Like in this year. And I think you look at
but I think the overall depth of the 2021 defense is just better than what they had in 2000.
Yeah, and Aziz is like, and I think Aziz Al-Shaair like is better than, I think he was better.
Fred Warner's better this year.
Yeah, they're all better. Like I think Greenlaw, like he's gotten like progressively like a little bit better, but I think Aziz Al-Shaair is better this 2021, 22.
This is an important comment, though. On offense, the 49ers offense is so much more physical than they were 2 years ago.
I think the receiving core is a little better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like that 20 because
KB really better.
Because KB really jumped in 2020 though. So it's like Emmanuel Sanders, like Brandon Ayuk. Maybe you look at that. I don't know. And like just
Jawan Jennings, though, is that extra little. Also, no Trent Williams in 2019.
Yeah, and that's Joe Staley. It was Joe Staley.
But
and then
Staley was hurt that season. He was in and out. I think what we forget about that
Ben Garland was a center.
Right. And I think what we forget about that 19 season is how many injuries they did have. You mentioned the Garland thing. I mean, George Kittle was injured going into the playoffs.
Quan Alexander.
I mean, they had so many issues. Yeah, like just heading into that postseason. It's funny how it's just funny, ironic how things have completely flipped for the 49ers, where this is the hottest they've been. This is the best their defense has been. And things are just going right at the right time for them. And you know what? I think that's where we're going to end things today, because I know Kyle Shanahan's talking right now. I do have to get going as well, unfortunately, although I do want to keep talking about this. I'm sure. So Vinny and I will be doing something tomorrow with Niner Nate, but we'll be doing Twitter Spaces some point later this week as well. We did it Friday last week. I think we'll try and do it a Friday again this week. We'll figure out the timing and everything. But if you are new to the channel, subscribe, comment, let us know how you enjoyed this show, and make sure you follow Vinny and me on Twitter, because that is how you will know when we are going live, when we are on Twitter Spaces, and we want to talk to the faithful. So make sure you guys interact with us. And you know what? When the 49ers, if they do eventually lose, because things are getting very interesting, we'll definitely do a call-in show. And I know we've been talking about doing a call-in show, but that's something that we definitely want to be doing at some point in this offseason, or if the season ends sooner than 49ers fans hope. But if you haven't already, subscribe. Check out all the links below in the description. I got me and Vinny's stuff linked all there. So I appreciate everyone sticking around. Enjoy your 49ers. And, man, just enjoy football. Have a great week, everyone.
Peace.